So in the previous video, we sort of talked about the Activision Blizzard deal and what Michael Pachter thinks will transpire. I also found an article over on gamesindustry.biz and collected the responses from Satya Nadella and Bobby Kotick to discuss how they think the deal is going and their reactions to the CMA reply, basically. So here's what's going to happen over the next few weeks. Let's dive in right now. So I think it would be best if we started with the gamesindustry.biz piece about how they think analysts see CMA objection to Activision Blizzard acquisition as a sign the deal will go through. Now, I saw a lot of headlines where people were like, the deal's done, it's all over. And I was really surprised by that because, we've talked about on this channel multiple times how this was expected. We figured that they would object. And they've actually laid out some remedies. And in the previous episode, go check it out. Go check out the previous episode later on where they talk about how they could actually just have a division that handles Call of Duty separately from Microsoft. They actually did this in their antitrust case from Internet Explorer days with Netscape Navigator. I believe that was the resolution to that case. I'm paraphrasing there, but yeah. So let's read what this piece says. Analysts see CMA objection to Activision Blizzard acquisition as a sign the deal will go through. Webbish Nick McKay and Michael Pachter see provisional findings as a signal that the UK knows it has a losing deal argument, expected to delay to mid-May. And the main takeaways are, shortly after, Webbish analyst Nick McKay and Michael Pachter released a note to investors saying the move suggests the merger is close to approval. We read today's release as a signal that the UK knows it has a losing legal argument, they said. In our view, the FTC figured this out late last year and rushed to file suit to block the merger in hopes of being first to extract concessions from Microsoft. We believe that the CMA reached the same conclusion during its review and accelerated its formal objection to the deal and proposed remedies in order to step in front of the FTC and gain bargaining rights. I believe that's actually Michael Pachter saying that. And that was sort of what he laid out in his video from the previous episode. He basically said, this seems like an arms race to be the first regulatory body that gets a one-up on Microsoft, basically, with this case. And the CMA has proposed remedies where the FTC has taken them directly to court. And I have to imagine that once whatever is decided with the CMA and Microsoft, then they're going to offer the same thing to the FTC as a reasonable resolution to their concerns and move on from that point. The FTC has yet to offer proposed remedies, and the CMA by listing onerous structural remedies has positioned itself to be the dragon slayer in this action. So again, the CMA is setting themselves up to look like, we beat the Microsoft company first before anybody else, and then everybody else will sort of fall into line from there. There's no signs that in any of the other locations there's going to be drastic changes. Everybody that I've read has said China is likely to go through, and the other territories, the CMA is the big important one. So it's going to be an interesting February, to say the least, right? Instead of splitting up the businesses, the analysts said they expect Microsoft to agree to a series of behavioral remedies. One such remedy might include keeping Call of Duty available on non-Microsoft platforms for a set number of years, such as the company had already pledged to do. One remedy they don't believe Microsoft would agree to would be making Activision games like Call of Duty available on competing cloud gaming services. Now, to me, that's sort of an odd one because why would they be concerned about having Call of Duty on competing cloud gaming services? Maybe that's something Activision isn't liking too much. Now, they also said, we expect Microsoft's acquisition of Activision to close no later than mid-May. So I believe April 15th was the final day we originally had, and now they're saying basically May 15th. So it has been bumped a little bit. And we know that because the Gamers lawsuit said, no, this isn't going to close before May. So they're like, okay, well, this will likely close around May 15th. Now, before we dive into some of the comments from Satya Nadella and Bobby Kotick, please consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell. 50% of you are not subscribed, and I like making these videos for you, but please take a second to consider doing that. If all of you subscribe right now, I would hit my goal of 100,000 subscribers right now. I'm also I'm almost meme worthy because I've landed on that line so much, but it's true. Seriously, it's not a joke. If 50% of the people watching this video hit subscribe, the goal will be done. And then I can stop using that line. I have to come up with something new. So let's talk about what Satya Nadella said. Here's what he said. I saw that Bobby Kotick was on your network this morning, and I thought he did a good job of explaining why he and I both are enthused about this combination, because I think it'll only bring more competitiveness to the gaming industry. And look, I look at this and say, at the end of the day, the regulators around the world have to make the choices. And I would only submit to them that if they really seriously think about competition, they have to sort of really reflect on, is this going to be helpful to bring more competition? Right? Think about this. He continues. There are people who make more money in gaming who don't even build games today. Like, maybe we should look at that. Then even if you look at the console market, we should probably look at Microsoft's share of the console market in Japan as a perhaps a question that somebody should ask and say, oh, wow, I wonder why that is that small. And maybe they should actually start competing more. So I hope that the regulators take an approach that is going to be truly beneficial to gamers. It's going to be beneficial to all publishers and make all gaming more competitive. Satya Nadella is obviously going to side with Microsoft's stance on this case, but the stuff that Microsoft says is on point. They are behind Sony in the market. They've made there's no reason that they would make Call of Duty exclusive to the Xbox platform. And I'm a little surprised there's no focus on Diablo or whatever, but I think a long time ago we discussed why that is. It's basically because how much revenue Call of Duty makes is so much higher than a game like Diablo. But Bobby Kotick was a little bit more aggressive. So let's hear what he said. Do you think this deal goes through? I do. I think there's no legitimately good reason why we shouldn't have the opportunity to compete against Japanese and Chinese companies. And I think regulators in the EU and UK and US will recognize that Western companies need to be able to compete. And he's referencing, obviously, I know he's referencing Sony because Sony is a Japanese company. And he's kind of like, yeah, we need to be able to compete. But the only thing is, with these statements, I mean, these are people that are going to benefit a lot from this deal going through. The stock is currently trading around 75. Let's just bring up the stock right now really quick. So Activision Blizzard is still trading at 75. And like, if you look at when the announcement happened, it bumped up 29%. It's actually up 2% for the week. And if you look for the whole month, it's down 2% for the month. But the market's kind of just waiting to see what happens with this deal. I think it's like been a $5 difference, kind of tanked here back in November. But there's a lot going on with the stock market. But people can have puts on it. Packer talked about selling puts. I don't know too much about stock stuff, but I do see little variation and fluctuation with that particular stock. So to me, that says investors still seem to think that it's worth having an investment there. So he continues on. You look at Sony, you look at Nintendo, they have these huge libraries of intellectual property. Sony has Sony Studios that goes back 80 years. Nintendo has the very best characters that exist in video games. Well, if you look at the UK and think about the post-Brexit UK, it's probably the first country where you're seeing a recession, like the real severe consequences of a recession. If you're the UK and you have an incredibly educated workforce, you have a lot of technical talent, places like Cambridge, where the best AI and machine learning is, I would think that you would want to embrace a transaction like this, where you're going to see a job creation and opportunity. And it isn't really at all whether it's Sony or Microsoft's platform. It's really about the future of technology. And they've said now for the last year, that would be like to be the Silicon Valley of Europe or the continent. And if deals like this can't go through, they're not going to be Silicon Valley. They'll be Death Valley. And he's saying that this isn't the first deal that the UK and the CMA have been blocking. They want to be the Silicon Valley of Europe, right? That's what he is alluding to. And they keep blocking these deals about expanding in Europe. So eventually people are just going to say, well, we're not going to go there. We can't. Like, they're never going to let us do anything there as a mega business. And it would have to be a whole separate video, but there's some facts to actually back up what he's saying with that statement. So time's going to tell what ends up happening here. But, if a company wants to sell and a big company wants to buy them, when everybody starts blocking those things, I think it's going to be interesting how that impacts future deals like this. Like, it could impact all the acquisitions that Sony has made and acquisitions that Tencent and Embracer Group are making, and it could negatively impact the gaming market in a different way. The way that I see things going out are all of these little companies, like Bungie goes to Sony, Microsoft has more money, so they're putting their bets down on a company like Activision. I think we're going to see a time where all of these companies are getting acquired, and we'll have these big companies, which we already do, and then new ones are going to spring up. New EAs, new Activisions will spring up. Like, Activision is from back in the Atari days, and they kind of built up this huge library of games over time, and they've had successes and failures, and it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's a lot of smaller companies popping up right now, and they could be the future Activision, and that's where I see it going. And then history will repeat itself. There'll be a bunch of acquisitions, and it'll all continue going. And that's why I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think there's a lot of people who are really nervous about it. I've said from the beginning, I'm not really nervous about any of these acquisitions. If it was Sony acquiring Activision, I wouldn't really be that nervous about it, if I'm being totally honest. Especially imagine Sony was acquiring the company and they said, we're going to keep all the games that you already play multi-platform, and then the new ones are probably going to be made console exclusive. That wouldn't be really concerning to me in the slightest. I wouldn't be worried about a degradation of quality or anything like that. So I'm a little surprised by the reaction. I think I had one more quote here. Let's see. Interviewers, paraphrase, if I were Sony, I'd be on the phone with you about this to ensure Call of Duty doesn't go Xbox exclusive. Kotick said, that's funny. Sony's not on the phone with us. In fact, they're not returning our phone calls. The reason for that is because Sony benefits the most by gumming up the works and seeing this deal fail. They want to cost Microsoft as much money as they possibly can. And you know what? I think I just got my idea for the next video. How that's biting them in the butt, because right now they're being subpoenaed. And I've made a few videos about that, but that is ongoing. And now Sony's even claiming that Microsoft is harassing them. Okay. You've been going around to all the regulatory bodies and crying foul. And now Microsoft is saying, show us the evidence. And you either don't have any, Sony doesn't have any, or they don't want to cough it up because they know, maybe we went a little bit too hard about this, because now we're tied up in all this legal stuff that we don't want to be tied up in. We just want to go up the works. Microsoft's like, okay, you want to play like that? We can play like that. And that's what it seemed like to me. Thank you so much for watching. If you've watched to the end of this video, please consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting that bell to know when my content goes live. I really appreciate you watching. And if you're one of the 50% of people who aren't subscribed, if you hit subscribe right now, we'd hit 100,000 right now. No joke. Actually, not even half of you. If 10% of you hit subscribe, it's because 20,000 views a video, half of that is 10,000 people. So 10,000 people aren't subscribed. So 1/5 of that. If 1/5 of 10,000 people watching this video hit subscribe, we'd hit the goal. So thank you for watching, everybody. Thank you to the members for supporting the channel. I really appreciate you very, very much. Thank you for, supporting when we had the baby and everything. And I know my schedule is like crazy right now. So hit that join button if you want to keep supporting. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get out of here right now. But check out this video, the one I recorded yesterday, where Michael Pachter said, here's what's probably going to happen, and this deal's likely going through. So a lot of people who are much smarter than I am think it's fine. So, they're smarter than I am. So I'm going with that expertise. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.